prayers. Om Agyantimirandasya Jnananjana Salakya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shnudvadi Paschatya Satarine Vanchakalpadruvasya Kripa Sindhuvecha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare. Hare Krishna. So, if devotees have questions from yesterday's class, then they may ask me. Otherwise, we'll just continue with the verses. Okay. Seems there is no question. So, somebody can read 22, 23, 24, all three of them.
Text 22, translation. I shall therefore describe to you the pastimes by which the personality of Godhead extends his transcendental potency for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic world as they occur one after another. Text 23, translation. The personality of Godhead, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by his will only that creation is made possible, and again, everything merges. This Supreme Self is symptomized by different names. Text 24, translation. The Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. The cosmic manifestation was not present at that time, and thus he felt imperfect without his plenary and separated parts and parcels. The material energy was dormant, whereas the internal potency was manifested.
Hare Krishna. So, it's mentioned here also that Lord existed before the creation. And that is why anybody who reads Bhagavatam will have no confusion about who is Supreme Lord. Because when there was no Shankar, Lord Shiva, no demigods, who was there? Only Lord Narayan was there. So there's no confusion about it. And then he wanted to awaken Prakriti, which is present as Pradhan, unmanifest. And the reason is that Lord has love for collective jivas as well as separate energy, that's Prakriti. So like a sleeping lover cannot be enjoyed, Vishwanath Thakur writes, in a very rasak way. But there were many lovers willing to give the Lord bliss who were awake, like Lakshmi, etc. So that's why there was no need for Lord to enjoy with action and energy, because he is inferior, being not conscious. But it is living entities who wanted to get gross and subtle bodies to enjoy, and that is the reason Lord glances at the Prakriti. Yeah. So we had read till 24th, right? Yeah. So now we can read 25, 26, 27.
The Lord is seer, and the external energy which is seen work as both cause and effect in the cosmic manifestation. O greatly fortunate Vidura, this external energy is known as Maya or illusion, and through her agency only is the entire material manifestation is made possible. Text 26. The Supreme Living Being in his feature as transcendental Purush incarnation, who is the Lord's penetrative expansion impregnates the material nature of three modes, and thus by the influence of eternal time, the living entity appears. Text 27. Thereafter, influenced by the interaction of eternal time, the supreme sum total of matter called Mahatattva become manifested, and in this Mahatattva, unallied goodness, the Supreme Lord sowed the seeds of universal manifestation out of his own body.
Yeah. So that Lord of Mahavakunta, Krishna, in his form's expansion as Mahavishnu, who is full of energy. So he placed the jivas into Maya. And he agitated the gunas by the medium of time factor, Kal, as we had discussed yesterday. And then what happened is, because of the interaction with Kal, which is a manifestation or a representation is Lord Shiva, Prakriti arose from, or Prakriti turned into Mahatattva. So from that comes Mahatattva in mode of goodness, that is sometimes called Buddhi Tattva also, which destroys the ignorance. Yes, please continue. Next three.
Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as the reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and the doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the mode of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also products of the same principle, namely the interaction of false ego and the mode of goodness.
So, as we had discussed yesterday also, same thing is written here, that how Mahatattva is the center of the universe. So in the previous verse, we heard that from it came two, Buddhi Tattva and Sutra Tattva. Buddhi Tattva is Mahatattva in mode of goodness. Sutra Tattva is Mahatattva in mode of passion. And here, Mahatattva in mode of ignorance is called Ahankar. So this is prominent in mode of ignorance. And from that Ahankar comes Adhyatma, Adibhut, Adidev, gross elements, subtle mind, sense devatas, and the details we had discussed yesterday. So from Ahankar in mode of goodness comes mind, Man, or it's called Mano Vaikaradikat Abhut. Then the sense devatas, and yes. Okay, so these two are there. Now what comes from Ahankar and passion and ignorance is given in 31, 32, 33. Please read 31, 32, 33.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. The senses are certainly products of the mode of passion in false ego, and therefore philosophical, speculative, knowledge and fruitive activities are predominantly products of the mode of passion. The sky is a product of sound, and sound is a transformation of egoistic ignorance. In the other words, the sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. Thereafter, the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with the eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced.
So from mode of passion comes, when Ahankar is in mode of passion, then we get the intelligence, Buddhi, the senses, and the life airs. Because that is basically in mode of goodness. Fruit activities and mode of passion. And fruit activities are in mode of passion. And from ignorance comes the Panch Mahabhut and 5 Tanmatras. So that diagram which I was showing, that from this not before sound also. So from Ankar and Tamas arose sense object starting from its sound and pervaded by the Lord, and from there came ether. Yes, from sound came ether. From then ether comes the touch sensation. Then air comes. So there is also mentioned here. Yes, please continue with another 3 verses.
Hare Krishna. Thereafter, the extremely powerful air interacting with the sky generated the form of sense perception, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light to see the world. Text 35. When electricity was surcharged in the air and was glanced over by the spring, at that time, a mixture of eternal time and external energy, there occurred the creation of water and peace. Text 36. Thereafter, the water produced electricity was glanced over by the Supreme Personality of God and mixed with eternal time and external energy. Thus, it was transformed into earth, which is qualified primarily by smell. Correct.
So subsequently, other elements came out, and they all entered in earth. So earth has all the properties of all the elements. But one very significant thing which we have to always remember is that in each of these interactions, Lord Mahavishnu's glance is always there. And that's why Lord says, Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Characharam Hetunanena Konte Jagat Viprivartate. So my adhyakshata or my guidance. So his glance is necessary. Unless until Lord's glance is there, this unconscious nature, material nature, will not manifest. So only when Lord Mahavishnu's glance is there, then it's like opening of the lotus. Bud turns into lotus. So whole creation takes place. Yes. Please read 37 onwards.
Hare Krishna. Translation. O gentle one, of all the physical elements beginning from the sky down to the earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 38. The controlling deities of all the above-mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties and were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as for
Yeah, that's what. Thank you. So, as I was telling before, that these things are not possible unless until Lord's glance is there. So his glance is necessary. But if you want to really understand the relationship between Lord Shiva and Parvati and Lord Vishnu, we can understand 38th. So after all, various demigods appeared, now which are considered the portions of Vishnu, and they possess the power of transformation, emotional state, consciousness, etc. So they were not able to interact each other. So although there was time factor in picture, and there was external energy in the form of Parvati, so Lord Shiva, Parvati were also there. And they themselves were part and parcel of the Lord. But despite that, they were not able to do the universal duties because they didn't knew how to mix. So this shows that one may take shelter of Lord Shiva in the form of time factor, of Parvati in the form of Prakriti, and one himself is part and parcel of Krishna. But despite that, one cannot get perfection of life unless until one gets mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's like very, very necessary. And that is the reason now these demigods are going to offer beautiful prayers to the Lord. So these demigods, we have to remember, these demigods are the demigods who are demigods of elements, and they are before Brahma also came out. So these are called elemental devatas, tattva devatas. Okay. Okay, so 39th, I didn't put the verse there, but you can repeat the verse, those who are having Bhagavatam with themselves, and you can read both the translation and the purport also of this verse. This is like very important verse. Deva uchuhu namamete deva padarvindam prapanna patapop samata patram yanamulaketa yatayo anjasoru samsara dukkham bahir uchchipanti. So who's going to read next? Then you can read the translation as well as purport.
Hare Krishna. The demigod said, O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. Purport. There are many sages and saints who engage in trying to conquer rebirth and all other material miseries. But of all of them, those who take shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord can completely throw off all such miseries without difficulty. Others who are engaged in transcendental activities in different ways cannot do so. For them, it is very difficult. They may artificially think of becoming liberated without accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. But that is not possible. One is sure to fall again to material existence from such false liberation, even though one may have undergone severe penances and austerity. This is the opinion of the demigods, who are not only well versed in Vedic knowledge, but are also seers of the past, present, and future. The opinions of the demigods are valuable because the demigods are authorized to hold positions in the affairs of universal management. They are appointed by the Lord as his confidential servants.
Yeah, thank you. So Atpatram is called umbrella. So Lord's lotus feet are compared to umbrella. Like when we take an umbrella, what happens is as soon as the raindrops come on the umbrella, they are thrown off. Immediately they are thrown off. Similarly, Lord's lotus feet are also compared to umbrella, which throw off one's misery. So they throw off the misery immediately and very far away. Very far away in such a way that it doesn't come back. So, like Mr. Jagat Thakur gives the example of a leech. So when leech sticks the body, it sucks our blood. And however power you may try to get rid of the leech, it doesn't come out. I personally have experience. It's like when I was in Calcutta, ISKCON New Town, so we had all lower forms of 8.4 million species available there. Snakes would come up to first floor and second floor also. And what to say about that? So one time I was bitten by a leech. And leech is so powerful that you just can't remove it like that. So anyway, I knew the solution. So immediately I went in the kitchen, I took some salt and then removed the leech. So once the leech is removed like that, and it is thrown away very far away, it doesn't come back. So similarly, like leech sucks our blood, similarly, material miseries, they take away one's peace of mind, they take away one's happiness. But one who takes shelter of Lord's lotus feet, which are like umbrella, all those miseries from very root are thrown away very far away. And they don't return. So that is how once one takes complete shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, no miseries can touch such a person. So that's why Lord's lotus feet are compared to umbrella in this verse. Now we can go to another verses, next verses.
Text 40. Don't you translation and purport both?
No, only translation.
O Father, O Lord, O personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the three kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them.
Yes, that's what. It's only 40. So in this verse, demigods pray that, O maintainer, O Bhagavan, Jivas can't take shelter of or can't get rid of miseries and attain peace on their own. Why they're clarifying? Because in the previous verse they said that one who takes shelter of a lotus feet gets rid of miseries which are removed from root. So we, as everybody knows, that the basic cause of misery is avidya. And vidya can destroy avidya. But even vidya cannot destroy suffering to its root. Because avidya is a product of mode of passion and ignorance, and vidya is product of mode of goodness. So despite taking shelter of mode of goodness, one remains in the feelings. So the only solution is bhakti. Bhakti is the only process. And that's why he said that even if Jiva tries to get knowledge by taking shelter of mode of goodness, of vidya, one can't get rid of miseries. The only solution is to take shelter of transcendental goodness by taking shelter of a lotus. So now we go to 41, and we can go to beautiful verse. Maybe bit after me. Actually speaking, really speaking, each of this, all the prayers, each of the verses and purports are really extraordinary. But because we have limited time, we can't go through all of them. Separately, devotees can read them. You can repeat this verse after. Marganti yatte mukhapad nides chanda suparne risayo vivikte Kasyagamar dasaridvaraya
Yasyaghamaşo
padam padam tirtha pada prapanna.
padam padam tirtha pada prapanna.
Now, this is translation and
This is Radha Keshav Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. The lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear-minded sages, carried by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of the rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. Purport. The Paramhansas are compared to royal swans who make their nests on the petal of the lotus flower. The Lord's transcendental bodily parts are always compared to the lotus flower because in the material world, the lotus flower is the last word in the beauty. The most beautiful thing in the world is the Vedas or Bhagavad Gita, because therein the knowledge is impressed in the lotus-like face of the Lord and always seeks shelter at his lotus feet, which are reached by the wings of Vedic wisdom. Since the Lord is the original source of all emanations, intelligent persons enlightened by Vedic knowledge seek the shelter of the Lord, just as the birds who leave the nest again search out the nest to take complete rest. All Vedic knowledge is meant for understanding the Supreme Lord, as stated by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 15.15. Vedescha sarv aham eva vedyo. Intelligent persons who are like swans take shelter of the Lord by all means and don't hover on the mental plane by fruitlessly speculating on different philosophies. The Lord is so kind that he has spread the river Ganges throughout the universe, so that by taking bath in the holy river, everyone can get released from the reactions of sins, which occur at every step. There are many rivers in the world which are able to evoke one's sense of God consciousness simply by one's bathing in them. And the river Ganges is the chief amongst them. In India, there are 5 sacred rivers, but the Ganges is the most sacred. The river Ganges and the Bhagavad Gita are the chief source of transcendental happiness for mankind, and intelligent persons can take shelter of them to go back home, back to Godhead. Even Sripad Shankaracharya recommends that a little knowledge in Bhagavad Gita and the drinking of the little quantity of the Ganges water can save one from the punishment of Yamraj. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari. So, Bhagavad Gita can see the Ganga Jalapi Kadaka Pizza. So, by Bhagavad Gita and Ganga water, one can attain Krishna. So, in this verse, so in first verse of the praise of demigods, they compared Lord's lotus feet to the umbrella. And here in this verse, they compare Lord to a tree. So people who are burned by the misery of scorching heat of sun, they generally look for the shade of the tree. So similarly, people of this world are being scorched by the heat of the sun, and intelligent people seek for that tree, that is the Supreme Lord. But they don't know where is the tree. So similarly, people of this world, they don't know where is Krishna. Like all of us, we don't know where is Krishna. Of course, now we are knowing. So then, how to know where is the tree? If one can see the birds which has made nest on the tree, one can follow the shadow of those birds and approach the root of the tree by following those birds. So similarly, great sages, they follow the Vedic directions given by the Vedas, because Vedas are compared to birds here. And by following the shadow of those birds, they approach that tree of the Supreme Lord. And that is how they can take shelter of the cooling shade of the lotus feet of the Lord. This is one analogy given, which is elaborated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And one more analogy I had, I couldn't find the source, but looks very authentic. That is, those who are Raganuga Bhaktas are compared to birds. So they are attracted by the beauty of the face of the Lord. So they make their nest on the face of the Lord. It's like they live in that beauty. But those who are not perfected Ragatmika Bhaktas like them, not Raganuga, I would say Ragatmika Bhaktas, those who don't have such attraction for the Lord, then they can follow in the footsteps of such Ragatmika Bhaktas, like following the shadow of the bird, and they take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord by beginning to practice Vyadi Sadhana Bhakti. So those lotus feet are the source of Ganga, which purifies the 3 worlds. So just by taking shelter of Ganga, one gets purified of sins. Then what to say of taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are source of Ganga? So Prabhupada quotes Shankaracharya saying that somebody takes shelter of Ganga, which emanates from the lotus feet of the Lord. It's like a river of Charnamrit, and takes shelter of Bhagavad Gita. Then one get perfection of life. And in your Delhi, those who are from Delhi, you have Yamuna. which is considered even more fortunate than Ganga, because Krishna personally took bath in Yamuna. And in the rainy season, you are getting fortune of being flooded by Yamuna. So Yamuna is purifying the whole of Delhi now, entering into Delhi. Yeah. Yes, sir. Please continue. 42.
Hare Krishna. 42 translation.
Do we need all
Simply by,
42, 43, 44?
okay. 42 translation. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once become enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment one become pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Verse 43 translation. O Lord, you assume incarnation for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet, because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotee. Verse 44 translation. O Lord, person who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsman, and who are bound by thoughts of mine and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. But let us take shelter of your lotus feet.
Thank you. So they say we take shelter of those lotus feet into our heart by the process of bhakti, as we had heard from the mouth of our Guru with faith. So if one serves the Supreme Lord by the process of bhakti, as spoken by Guru or as heard from Guru, that itself is considered perfection of life. Because perfection of life is to serve Krishna. And we don't know how to serve Krishna, but those who are pure devotees of the Lord, they know how to serve Krishna. So if we are serving Krishna under the instruction of pure devotees, then they don't have to, one doesn't have to do anything else. That is actually the activity of the soul itself. Jiva Swarupa Krishna Nityadas. So by doing that, what is the result? One can experience the sweetness of the Lord. And when one experiences that sweetness of the Lord, then the whole world becomes disgusting. Whole world becomes useless. All material pleasures become useless. So that's why wise people, they take shelter of the bhakti process to serve the Lord under the instruction of the Guru. And why it is mentioned here? Because in the previous verses, they were saying, chanda saparne rasyo vivekte, that rishis follow the Vedas. But then, if somebody can realize the sweetness of the Lord, which is like honey in a tree. So if we go to a tree and we find a honeycomb there, and one can get honey from there, then one doesn't have to go up the mountain of Vedas to search the honey there. Because to serve the Supreme Lord by taking shelter of Vedas is very, very difficult. So the easiest process is serve the Supreme Lord under the instruction of the spiritual master. So then how to take shelter of the Lord? They say we can take the shelter of the Lord by taking shelter of different avatars of the Lord, which descend in this world for creation, maintenance, and destruction. So that is how they request for sovereign mercy. And then they say that bhakti is hard to attain for unfortunate jivas. But still, Lord lives in our own bodies. So we don't have to search for the Lord anywhere. But those who are too much infested with the mentality of I am this body and things belonging to this body is mine, so they can't see the Lord who is situated in his own body. So that's like Lord is nearest to us, but still we can't see him. We try to see things far away. So we can't see the Lord who is just next to us. So he can be obtained only through the process of bhakti. Now, please read 25, sorry, 45. Okay, only 45 verse translation.
O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but they are seen by your pure devotees, whose one and only aim is to transcendentally enjoy your activities.
So after the previous verse, Lord may say, you are glorifying me so much, and it is so easy to obtain that everybody can associate with the devotees who are wandering over the world and practice bhakti and experience me. Why they don't experience me? So then demigods answer by speaking this verse. They say those people who are minds are situated in their body, in the sense that too much conscious of the body. So then their minds are stolen away by sense gratification because they think I am the body and I am the senses. Because they are convinced that their senses and senses need sense gratification. So their minds cannot dwell in the process of bhakti. Because minds are absorbed somewhere else. How can they be absorbed in bhakti? So that's why only if they associate with pure devotees of the Lord, they remember the Lord, they sing about the pleasing stories of the Lord, and they hear the pastimes of the Lord, then they can get rid of this offensive thinking. Otherwise, they can't. So, because somebody who's too absorbed in sense gratification, they can't get rid of bhakti. Sorry, get rid of material desires. Now they start speaking about glories of hearing about the Supreme God. Because as in the previous verse, they were speaking that the only remedy for people who are too much engrossed in sense gratification is to hear about glories of the Lord and speak out glories of the Lord. So that's why they start speaking this verse. This is very famous. You can also repeat this verse after me. Panena te deva katha sudaya
पानेन ते देव कथा सुधाया
pravridya bhaktya visedasayaye
प्रवृत्त भक्त्या विशदाश्रयाये
vairagya saram pratilabdha bodham
वैराग्यसारं प्रतिलभ्य बोधम्
yathanjasani akunta drishnam
यथाञ्जसान्वीयुर्कुण्ठधिक्ष्ण्यम्. Translation: O Lord, persons who because of their serious attitude attain the stage of enlightened devotional service achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge and attain the Vaikuntha Lok in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. Purport: the difference between the impersonalists, mental speculators, and the pure devotees of the Lord is that the former pass through a miserable understanding of the absolute truth at every stage, whereas the devotees enter into the kingdom of all pleasures even from the beginning of their attempt. The devotees who has only to hear about devotional activities, which are as simple as anything in ordinary life, and he also acts very simply, whereas the mental speculator has to pass through a jugglery of words, which are partially facts and partially a make show for the maintenance of an artificial impersonal status. In spite of his strenuous effort to attain perfect knowledge, the impersonal attains merging into the impersonal oneness of the Brahmajyoti of the Lord, which is also attained by the enemies of the Lord simply because of their being killed by him. The devotees, however, attain to the higher stage of knowledge and renunciation and achieve the Vaikuntha loks for the planets in the spiritual sky. The impersonalist attains only the sky and does not achieve any tangible transcendental bliss, whereas the devotees attains to the planets where real spiritual life prevails with a serious attitude. The devotees throw away all achievements like so much dust, and he accepts only devotional service, the transcendental communication.
Yeah. So, so in this particular verse, what Lord is speaking is, sorry, these demigods are speaking is that materialistic people also, those who increase their devotion by hearing about Lord, panen te deva katha sudhaya. Katha sudhaya means nectar of your katha, they drink it through their ears. By drinking the nectar of Krishna's pastimes through the ears, what happens is pravriddha bhaktya. Visidasaya. So once bhakti becomes stronger, strengthened. And when one bhakti becomes strengthened, one realizes the sweetness of the Lord. By realizing the sweetness of the Lord, automatically one gets detachment from this world. Vairagya saram. And what is the end? Akunta dishnam. One quickly attains Vaikuntha. So hearing Krishna Katha helps a person to very quickly advance in Krishna consciousness. So that's why they are saying that all the people should take shelter of this Krishna Katha, which is given there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So now you can read 47, 48 and 49, all three of them. Yes.
Others who are pacified by means of transcendental self-realization and have conquered over the modes of nature by dint of strong power and knowledge also enter into you. But for them, there is much pain. Whereas the devotee simply discharges devotional service and thus feels no such pain. Text 48 translation. O original person, we are therefore but yours only. Although we are your creatures, we are born one after another under the influence of the three modes of nature. And for this reason, we are separated in action. Therefore, after the creation, we could not act considerately for your transcendental pleasure. Text 49 translation. O unborn one, please enlighten us regarding the ways and means by which we can offer you all enjoyable things and commodities so that both we and all other living entities in this world can maintain ourselves without disturbance and can easily accumulate the necessities of life both for you and for ourselves.
So in verse number 47, they compare bhakti, which is mentioned in text 46, with process of gyan, which is mentioned in 47. So what they say is, as far as people who desire liberation and they take shelter of gyan process in order to conquer the mental energy by mental concentration and merging in the Lord, for them there is misery from beginning. In the previous verse 46, it was mentioned that for devotees the process of bhakti is pleasing from beginning. Panena tedeva katha sudhaya. That means one realizes process of bhakti from very beginning. And for this gyanis, what is mentioned? From beginning only they have misery. So they become distressed. So they have to undergo a lot of distress, whereas in bhakti there is no pain at all. Pain comes only when one starts mixing bhakti with karma and gyan, or one has conceptions of karma and gyan. Sometimes devotees also, it's like, no, they say prove, no, they become too much attached to ritual. Then also it becomes like very painful. Of course, in sadhana bhakti, you have to follow rituals, but excessive attachment makes life miserable. So then what happens is bhakti is very pleasurable from beginning, and for them it's miserable. And that is the reason those jnanis who practice jnana without taking shelter of bhakti along with that, they neither get the result and their life is very frustrating. So for them, Brahmaji has spoken a verse from 10:14:4. 10:14, 1:4, 10:14:4. Shreya sritim bhakti mudasyate vibho klesyanti ye kevala bodha labhate tesamaso klesala eva sisyate nanat yatha sthula kusavagatina. So Shreya sritim bhakti mudasyate vibho klesyanti ye kevala bodha labhate. So those who don't take shelter of bhakti process and they just take shelter of Gyan process, for them what happens is klesyanti, they get only kles, they get only misery. That is the only result which they get. So tesamaso klesale visasate nanandetha sthula kusavagatina. So for them, trying to get liberation by practice of Gyan is like beating the empty husk. So people generally husk the rice so that they can get the rice or wheat, and then they remove the husk. But if you take the empty husk and you beat it, only thing which we get is we get a good exercise of beating the husk. Nothing else is there. We don't get any grains. So similarly, those who practice only Gyan without parallelly practicing Bhakti, they don't even get the result of Gyan, rather they get only misery. That's why even for other yogis, Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, they have to practice Bhakti along with Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga to get the result of their process. Na yudyamaneya bhaktya bhagavati akhilatmani sadru asti seva panta yoginam brahmasite. So any yogi, Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, anyone, they have, and if they want to get the result of their activities, so then what they have to do is Bhagavati Akhilatmani. They have to do bhakti of their Supreme Lord. So that is mentioned here. And now in 48 and 49, they start expressing their concern. So, my dear Lord, we want to serve you. We want to practice bhakti. We want to follow your instructions. We know that we are created for the purpose of following your instructions. Now, so we want to carry out the creation of the universe. So you have created us from mode of goodness. And this creation is created from mode of goodness, passive ignorance. But the problem with us is we are disunited. We can't mix. So it's like we may have all 24 elements, like in the kitchen, we may have different sabjis, vegetables. So we have patta gobi and phool gobi and no aloo, and we have all the masalas, dhania powder, then haldi powder is there, salt is there, no jeera powder, jeera is there, we have ghee, everything is there. Gas is also there. But then if we can't mix it, how can we survive? We can't prepare sabji in our belly by putting dhania powder in the mouth and then haldi powder in the mouth and then aloo in the mouth and no salt in the mouth and just shaking around. We can't create sabji like that. All these things have to mix in order to make a sabji. So similarly, 24 elements, unless until they mix, they can't have further creation. And that's why these demigods are praying that, my dear Lord, we don't have power to mix. So we have time factor, we have Prakriti, which has 24 elements. We are there, who are the in charges of the elements. but there is no potency to mix. So we are disunited. So only if you send that energy, then we can continue further creation. We can continue the further process. So then Lord says, okay, tell me how can I fulfill your desires? So they say that, oh my dear Lord, birthless Lord, so we'll give you objects at the appropriate time. And we'll offer you service, but please enlighten us in how to serve you by offering you enjoyable grains and other things. That means, please tell us how to mix and do continue further creation. So if we don't do that, no, we are helpless. Now please read another two verses also, 50, 51.
You are the original personal founder of all demigods and the orders of different gradations, yet you are the oldest and are unchanged. O Lord, you have no source or superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of total living entity, yet you are unborn. Text 51. O Supreme Self, please give us who are created in the beginning from Mahatattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind direction on how shall we act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render you service. We can render you service in different departments of the subsequent creation.
So now they clearly tell that we are devatas, we have some power of creation, but actually speaking, you are without change and you are the Supreme Lord and you can only do everything. So you are the original cause, the controller without beginning. You bestow the mass of jivas with consciousness. And you only are the womb of gunas and karma. So we are in charges, but we don't know what to do further. We are created, but we don't know how to do service, what to do further. So that's why we need your mercy, we need the knowledge, and we also need power to follow that knowledge or directions as you desire. So unless until you do that, we can't further create, we can't further do a service. So they speak it very, very clearly. So that is how this chapter ends. And now Lord is going to give the solution in the next verse. So there is some last slide also just below that. Mataji, you can just scroll it down. So these are like the summary of the prayers by the demigods. So last four verses are the verses about or description of actually what they wanted to pray. So initially there was the glories of taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Then there was qualified and unqualified, who were qualified for getting bhakti, who were not qualified for getting Lord's mercy or bhakti. And the last four prayers are the prayers of their actual difficulties. So they wanted enlightenment on how to, and direction, enlightenment and directions on how to further create. So how to further create, that we'll discuss in the next chapter. So although we generally at 11:30, then I think now we can have 10 minutes break, or maybe it's 11:07. or 11:08. So maybe a 12 minutes break. So we'll come back at 11:20, and then we'll start our next chapter. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Will you give slide for next chapter?
I'll send you just now.
Okay.
मम्मी इसको बंद कर लो थोड़ी देर, मेरे को नींद, थोड़ा 10 मिनट का ब्रेक मिला है, थोड़ा सा लेट जाऊंगी, आंखें बंद कर।
Hare Krishna. So I think devotees are back. So we'll start with the next chapter. That's creation of the universal form. So first 10 verses, they discuss about the description of the creation of universal form. Then how different demigods they're manifested from the universal form. Then there is development of planets, living beings, etc. And the last verses, they discuss about how Matrimony, he felt unworthy to describe the Lord's glories. So we'll start with text number 1. Please read 1, 2, and 3.
Text 1. The Rishi Maitreya said, the Lord thus heard about the suspension of the progressive creative functions of the universe due to the non-combination of his potencies, such as the Mahatattva. Text 2. The Supreme Powerful Lord then simultaneously entered into the 23 elements with the goddess Kali, his external energy, who alone amalgamates all the different elements. Text 3. Thus, when the personality of Godhead entered into the elements by his energy, all the living entities were enlivened into different activities, just as one is engaged in his work after awakening from sleep.
So seeing that creation is sleeping, because the elements were not able to mix with each other, so Lord sent his energy of cohesion, which comes through time factor in due course of time. And then Lord himself as Antaryami entered in each and every of the 23 elements so that they can become active. Because these 23 elements have no consciousness. So in order for creation to take place, Lord had to enter in them. So Swa Sakti Nam, Lord's Mahatattva and all elements are called Lord's Sakti. Because they are created from Maya of the Lord. Okay. So Lord entered it with holding Prakriti. And then after 1,000 years, Lord entered as Paramatma. That means for 1,000 years, living entities were just waiting to get another body. So they combined together with a making a very glowing object. So all the living entities, they wait for getting gross and subtle bodies. So this way Lord enters, and then Lord using his Kriya Sakti, energy of action, awakens the dormant karmas of the jivas, and that is how elements combine together. So jivas get the inspiration to again create further actions. And then Lord enters in it, and Prabhupada writes that he enters with Kali, the Kali potency of the Lord. And that is how this cohesion takes place. Now elements get in power to mix with each other. So all elements can mix with each other and form a conglomerate. Please read 4, 5, and 6.
Hare Krishna. When the 23 principal elements were set in action by the will of the Supreme, the gigantic universal form, or the Vishwarup body of the Lord, came into existence. As the Lord, in his plenary portion, entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. The gigantic Virat Purush, known as Hiranmaya, lived for 1,000 celestial years on the waters of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him.
Yeah. So then these elements were endowed with Kriya Sakti, the potency to create, being stimulated by the Lord, and that produce the universal form of the Lord. That's called Adi Purusham, the universal form. Now, this universal form is like universe only, but in a subtle form. It's a conception. It's like we have a blueprint before we make a building. Similarly, this universal form is more like a blueprint. So these elements for creating universe, they combined together by the Lord and in their portion. So they became like a fetus which grows into a big man later on. Similarly, this universal form is like that fetus. That's like a conception or a blueprint. So it's all planets and living entities, they exist on that universal form. And then what happens is the golden universal form consisting of all resting jivas remained in this universe for 1,000 years. That means what is mentioned in text number 6 is the creation of the universe. So first the conception of how universe would look to be comes out. That is the Virat Roop. And then universes are formed. So these 24 elements, they are created from Mahatattva, which is like an ocean. And then, as explained in Brahma Samhita, when Mahavishnu exhales, the universe comes out. So similarly, from that mixture of 24 elements, so 24 elements are created, then they were mixed. And after that creation, after that mixture, then because of presence of Mahavishnu, those universes start coming out. Like if we put our hand in water, then small bubbles come out. Similarly, from Mahavishnu, all those golden universal forms come out. But they come out after the conception of how universe should be was created beforehand, and that is called universal form of the Lord, or the Virat Purush. So, but this golden egg in the form of the universes, it remained again dormant for almost thousand years. Why? Because Supreme Lord is not there. So only when the Supreme Lord will enter, the creation will take place. Yes, please read 7, 8, and 9.
Hare Krishna, Bhai, Dhanam Pradhan.
Hare Bol.
Proji, after coming the eggs like Hiranyagarbha from from Mahavishnu, it's remained in dormant condition for 1,000 years, 1,000 celestial years.
1,000 celestial years. Now see,
Till that time, Garbhodak Sai Vishnu was not there. After that period, he appeared in the Mahatattva.
Yes. Not Mahatattva, in the universe.
In the universe, and why 24 elements are not reacting with each other? Because the three modes of nature are equivalent with each other. That's why.
No, that was before. I'll tell you the hierarchy. See, initially what happens is three modes of material nature were in equilibrium. Then by Lord's glance, they turn into Mahatattva. Then 3% of Mahatattva. Then like that, all 23 elements or 24 elements came out. Then these 24 elements were there along with the Devatas. Then Devatas were praying that, my Lord, we cannot mix.
Okay, these are the eternal Devatas, before creating of Brahma.
Okay, so these
you are talking about. Who lives
so
with Mahavishnu.
Yes, these are the Devatas, yes.
Okay, so after Proji, his Virat Purush, again devatas are moving or entering in the different parts of the universal form. So these devatas are different from those devatas.
So they have not yet come only till now. Other demigods will enter in the. Actually speaking, we are very clear there are two set. There may be three set also. I'm not sure about the Garbhodaksh, those who stay with Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So there's one set of demigods who stay with Mahavishnu.
Okay.
Then there are another demigods which are created by Brahma, which are like post, which are occupied, which are like change in one day of Brahma 14 times.
Ji. These are the Jiv Tattva, Prabhuji.
So these are also Jiv Tattvas, but these are like bound Jiv Tattvas, those who will be created by Brahma later on.
Ji.
And these people, I'm not very sure whether they are pure devotee, but look like they say that now we are part and parcel. So they may be pure devotees also, those who stay with Mahavishnu.
Ji.
But
till now, Brahma has not been created. So how the second construction of demigods can be constructed before creation of Brahma?
No, they are not created now.
Then in the slokas, it will come that when Virat Purush I appears, so the demigod son entered into that and he sat down like that.
Okay. So this is a conception. Conception means it's like blueprint is made before the building is made. So when blueprint is made, that will not find any building. You go to the land, you may look like it is a farm still. कुछ हुआ ही नहीं है उसमें, nothing has happened. But unless until you make the blueprint of the building, you can't create a building.
Yes,
so this particular demigods which are getting created now in Virat Rupa, and even though the Virat Rupa is already created. So
they are in imagination only.
I won't say it is imaginary, it is called planning.
But they are activating, Proji.
They are activating, but that activation is also subtle. It's not gross. They are not yet manifest.
Okay.
It's like, no, what happens is, our problem is that whatever we see as solid, like now I'm seeing this glass or anything. We say that this is real, and whatever is in mind is imagination. But actually seeing whatever we have in mind is also created of subtle elements.
Yes. Proji.
So that is not imagination.
Like in the dream condition. Dream is also real.
So dream is also real. Dream is also not illusory, because that is affecting us.
Yes. Proji.
So similarly, this conception of Virat Roop is also a blueprint, which is real in the sense that it is made up of subtle elements.
Okay.
So it's like on a planning phase, because now Brahmaji has to create such a big creation, or even here also. Actually, you will see that this one Virat Roop, which is created, which is explained in text number 5. No, not 5. This text number 5 only. So text number 5 also talks about elements of creating the universe combined together by the Lord, who has entered his position, formed a fetus in which all planets and living entities exist. So text number 5 also explains about the Virat Roop, which is again a conception. So there is a conception on how to universe are made. That's like blueprint before universe is made. That's in text 5.
Okay.
And now another Virat Roop will be made on what will be constructed inside the universe.
Okay, that will also be imagination, or that will be true?
Means again, imagination means that will also be made up of subtle elements, and that will be given to Brahma to make it pakka, make it like now with gross elements.
Okay, like in mechanical engineering, we first of all we make a drawing on SolidWorks, then in the factory it's become true, real or casting, like that.
Yes. So our engineer is Brahmaji, and Brahmaji needs a blueprint. So this one is not given to Brahmaji, because Brahmaji is not involved in this creation of universes. The next one which is there, which will be given to Brahma for creation.
Okay. Prabhuji, this is similar like that when Baman Deo was in that Leela Prabhuji, when Baman Deo was measuring the 3 steps, so he made his step very large and he all the elements or all the whole Brahmand means like from earth to till Brahmalok or till Patalok all come in his body part. So he was also at that time was made by subtle elements or made his body in subtle elements so that all the universe was inside his body.
Okay, 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 okay. So that vision is there. So that is also you can say Virat Roop. So that's why Virat Roop is in many forms. Actually, there is a, you can say a universal form which is temporarily manifest, and one which is like a blueprint. So each one is different. It's like universal forms are unlimited, not one. Like now you can have thousands of blueprints.
Ji.
So similarly, we have thousands of Virat Roop also.
Okay,
So there is
Prabhuji.
so when Vamandev came, you are right. You know there is a one Virat Roop which is given. Now if you see the Virat Roop which when Varahadev came,
Ji.
that time Varahadev is considered the personification of Yajna. And different in the third canto, and different like elements are given in different places. That is also one Virat Roop. Then there is one Virat Roop in which all demigods are at the part of the Lord. In one Virat Roop, there are different planetary systems are at the part of the Lord.
And Krishna's source to Arjuna was another Virat Roop.
Another Virat Roop. So these all are like temporary manifestation or some maybe like long-lasting manifestation also, but they are like subtle conception. And those who are worshippers of Virat Roop, they meditate on any of these forms. Like we have different avatars, so they also have different universal forms, and they can meditate on them, and that is how they get purified of sins.
After meditation, what they will achieve, Prabhuji?
They get rid of sins. So Virat Roop, I don't know whether in second canto they have, the teacher has explained it elaborately. He might have explained, must have explained, that those who are following Ashtanga Yoga, so after practicing Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, one of the angas of Pratyahar is taking sannyas. So after taking sannyas, they are supposed to meditate, but if their heart is not pure, they cannot meditate on Paramatma. So such people are recommended to worship Virat Roop till their heart is purified, so that they become qualified to meditate on Paramatma. In spite of whole life meditating on Virat Roop, if they cannot meditate on Paramatma, then generally they end up their life by cracking a coconut on their head, and they go through Kram Mukti. Kram Mukti is called Archa Adi Marg. They go to different planets and enjoy there for many millions of years, and finally then they achieve liberation. So these people, they meditate on Virat Roop.
So we can say that they will achieve Brahma Jyoti.
They will achieve it, but it takes a lot of time.
Okay, by Kramamukti, not Sadhyo, immediately.
Not immediately. They go through Kram Mukti. They go gradually.
Okay.
So they take a lot of
time. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, so did we read 7, 8, 9? No.
The total energy of the Mahat Tattva in the form of the gigantic Virat Roop divided himself by himself into the consciousness of the living entities, the life of activity, and self-identification, which are subdivided into 1, 10, and 3 respectively. Text 8. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Super Soul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation which thus flourishes. Text 9. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1 in the sense that he is the body and the mind and the senses. He is the dynamic factor, dynamic force for all movements by 10 kinds of life energy. And he is one heart where life energy is generated.
So you can need 10th also.
Yes.
Because 10.
The Supreme Lord is the super soul of all the demigods, entrusted with the task of constructing the cosmic manifestation. Being thus prayed to by the demigods, he thought to himself and thus manifested the gigantic form for their understanding.
So as I told, this universe is there in the form of fetus. And now fetus has to turn into a man. It has to grow. So how it is signified? That this Virat Roop conception comes from there. So in order to produce organs such as mouth, first three Shaktis are described. So Jeev Shakti, Pran Shakti, and Atma Shakti. These three Shaktis are there. So Jeev Shakti is the living entities. Then Pran Shaktis are there, which are life airs. And there is Atma Shakti, that is the divine soul. So, and then later on, this one Jeev Shakti turn into 10 Pran Shaktis and 3 Atma Shaktis. So all these details, they are more dwelled upon by those who are Sankhvadis, Sankhites. And from that appears this Virat Roop. And this Virat Roop is meant to be worshipped before worshipping Paramatma, as I just told to Prabhuji just now. Answer to his question. So he's meditated by those who are going to worship Paramatma because he purifies the heart. So this form is the Atma of unlimited living beings, in the sense that all living entities, they dwell in this form. As I told, it is a more of a Sattva conception of the Lord. But this form is like a Amsa belonging to Paramatma only. Paramatma basically you can say Garbhodaksha. So yogis meditate on this form before worshipping Paramatma. So all demigods, men, they all manifest in this form, which we are going to read after text number 10. Just now we are going to read. So who are these 1, 10, and 3? That is mentioned in text number 7. It's mentioned in text number 9 and again. So there are 3 Atma Shaktis. They are the senses. Yeah. So Sadhyatmaha, along with the senses. Sadideva, Sa Adideva, those Adidevas, Devatas are there. And Adibhuta. So these 3 are Adatma, Adibhut, Adidev, as we had discussed before. So these are 3 Atma Shaktis. And then sense Devatas are there, gross organs are there. 10 Pran Shaktis are there, Prana, Pan, Uban, Saman, Pran, Apan, Udan, Vayan, Saman. Then Nag, Kurma, Karkak, Devdatta, Dhananjay. So these are the 10 years. So anyway, okay, at least I can mention here because anyway we are going to Sankhya. So each one of them, they have their own, these 10 years, they dwell in each one of our bodies and they have their own functions. I'll explain the function one by one. Pran Shakti is one which moves forward and it is located in the nostrils. Pran Shakti is there in the nostrils. That we are smelling. That's Pran Shakti. Apan is one which moves down and it is located in the area of the anus, which helps in us clearing the stomach. So those who are getting constipated, that Apan Vayu is not working properly. So these are called pranas. These are pranas which are mentioned in that chart also. Then Saman helps us in assimilation of food and drink. and it is located in the middle of the body. So that's there. Udan rises upward and located in the throat area. Vyan moves everywhere and is located in the whole body. Nag causes expulsion. Kurma causes opening of eyes. Then only we can open our eyes. Krikar causes hunger. Devdeta causes yawning. Dhananjaya causes nourishment. And then there is also Jiva, which is unbroken consciousness. So up to Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya is causes of nourishment. And Dhananjaya also deteriorates the body when the soul leaves the body. So even after soul leaves the body, sometimes you'll find that some body parts may sick. I personally seen it, like what happened with my uncle, who just passed away 1 month back. So they were saying, oh, what happened was his body is moving. So that Dhananjaya deteriorates the body. So that one of the prana shaktis remain. And then Supreme Lord Bhagavan, remembering the prayers of the personified elements, he decided to create this universal form by his Chit Shakti, so that elements could perform their functions. Why these Shaktis had entered? So that the now universal form can come out. So the subtle form of universe is going to come out. And why it is important for devotees to know that? It is important for the devotees to know that because we have to know or understand that we are dependent on the Lord for everything, including sensitive things. And if we remember that, then we will not consider ourselves to be separate from the Supreme Lord. Even if somebody is enjoying sense gratification, we have to understand he's dependent on Krishna for that. And that is the reason this Virat Roop concern, which is actually truth, is also important for us to know. So this 10 type of values are also given here. And now there is manifestation of universal form. So just a minute, I will see if I can get one formula I have to. So just please wait for a minute. So there are some description. Okay, okay. So this is very good. So I'll explain the start first.
We can increase the size of fonts.
Probably that you can do on your phone or laptop, wherever you have login.
Adaji, I was not able to do. That's why I was requesting.
Okay. What you want to before showing that, you can scroll up. Little bit.
That's good. Thank you, Guru.
You can scroll up before. Hare Krishna. Are you able to hear me? Can you just scroll up? I'll just tell the sequence so that devotees are clear what has happened till now. Please scroll up also. More. The chart which I wanted to show this chart fully. So the devotees are in line with whatever we have spoken till now. So as I told before, we had already shown that chart in which 24 elements were there. And after this 24 elements, these elements were unmixed. And that is why they offered the prayers in the previous chapter to the Lord. And as a result of that, Lord became very pleased and he entered as energy of cohesion along with Kali. so that all these 23 elements can mix with each other. And these elements combine, and that is how Virat Roop comes into existence. This is which Virat Roop? Who is a subtle conception of universe before the universe is created. And then these elements combine together to form a fetus in which all lokas and characharas existed. Now this Virat Roop lived on waters with jivas for how much year? 1,000 celestial. And what is this Virat Roop now? It is manifest as the universe. So universe. And then Lord Garbhodaksha Vishnu entered in that. And this Virat Roop further divides himself into Jivan Jeev Shaktis, 10 Pran Shaktis, and 3 Atma Shaktis, which are the Adhyatma, Adibhut, Adidev, which I had explained before. So Adhyatmas are the senses, Adibhut are the sense objects, which we see or hear or taste, etc. And Adidev are the sense devtas. So that is how they all manifest. And now we will see how from the gross organ of the Lord, now, and the subtle organ of the Lord, we get our gross and subtle elements. Okay. So is Kali, Amaran Prabhu is asking, the gross or the subtle energy of the Lord, Maya Devi? You can say she is one of the aspects of Maya Devi. Like one of the aspects of Maya Devi was Pradhan, which had ingredients of all 23 elements. And that is generally called so these are Upadan. That is the Upadan energy, which has all the ingredients. So we have Upadan Karan and Nimitta Karan. So Nimitta Karan means the actual cause or the instrumental cause. So instrumental cause is Mahavishnu. And Upadan Karan is Pradhan. Because Pradhan has all 24 elements. Like when a potter makes a pot, he moves the wheel with his stick. So a stick you can compare it to, or stick and the wheel you can compare it to Lord Shiva. Potter is the actual cause. And how this pot is made? Pot is made from the mud. Mud is compared to Pradhan. So mud is called the Pradhan, Upadan Karan, and Mahavishnu is called the Nimitta Karan, the instrumental cause. But what happens is, many people who are not Vaishnavas, they are given subsidiary meanings. That's why you'll find in Shiv Puran it is given that Shiva is the actual cause. It is like saying that wheel is the cause of the pot, wheel and the mud. But who's moving that wheel? Who's moving that wheel? It is Mahavishnu who is moving the wheel. And that is the reason many Mayavadis, they don't understand things completely, because they don't understand that it's ultimately Lord Shiva is Mahavishnu's glance only. So then they don't understand. So that is how this one aspect of Parvati or Uma, and another aspect of that material energy is Kali, which is cohesion potency. That's called Kali. And then there's Trigudimai Maya, also 3 modes of material nature. So that's also called Maya. So there are different aspects of Maya Devi.
So they are different energy of the Lord Prabhuji.
You can say there is one energy, but there is different manifestation of the same energy. In that sense of they have different functions. Like Radharani and Durga Devi are non-different. But how they are different? They are different in the sense that their functions are different. That's why in Tattva Sandarbha, Jeev Goswami quotes, Yam Yamna Namni Durga Ham Gud Gurgulvati Ham Yad Vaibhava Mahalakshmi Radha Nitya Paradvaya. So Durga Devi, this, my name is Durga. I am non-different from Mahalakshmi and Radharani. So how she is different? She is different in functionality. So as Radharani, she connects us to Krishna. As Mahalakshmi, she connects us to Narayan. As Durga Devi, she makes us forget Krishna. So similarly, how to forget Krishna? There are different functions again. So then there is a Upadan Karan, why we see creates the elements. Then she is also composed of three modes of material nature, and she is also present as a cohesive energy, that is Kali. And now Kali also a lot of assistants. Now you will say cohesion. In cohesion also there are unlimited varieties. So that is how through her assistants or her expansions, she does different functions.
Okay, so it is after mixing with Pradhan or Lord Shiva.
No, see, Pradhan, after mixing with, not Pradhan, Lord Shiva is Kal. So after Kal, mixing with Kal, she creates variety, but Kal is separate and the Shakti is separate.
Okay, Prabhuji.
So when she comes as Kali, she enters with Lord Vishnu. She doesn't enter with Kal. When she comes as Kali, if we see then that verse which Prabhupada has quoted, she enters with Paramatma in each and every element. That means all atoms can combine, and whatever we learn in chemistry, etc. This happens, that happens. This is all because Kali is there and there is presence of Paramatma. Okay.
In the presence of Kal also, Prabhuji, Kal is also there or not?
Kal is also there. Kal is moving. Kal has a seed. Kali has a different function. Kal has a function of moving the creation forward. Like in a movie, if you don't have time, movie turns into a picture, right?
Ji.
So like if you remember in the earlier days, there were blueprints, and those blueprints were moved in a motor so that you can see a movie in the theater. So similarly, this Kal moves the things in a forward direction so that whole creation can take place. That is the functionality of the Kal. But the function of combining is done by Kali, and function of providing the 24 elements is done by Pradhan.
Okay,
Or
Prabhuji.
Parvati. Pradhan or Parvati.
And all move due to presence of Kal.
They all move because of presence of Kal. Yes.
Okay.
And but who is this Kal? Who is this Kal is ultimately glance of Mahavishnu.
Yes, that is clear.
So that's why glance of the Lord is the cause of all the changes. Continuous change.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Devotees have any other question? I hope things are like going inside. So just wait a minute. I'll see. I'm trying to search for one formula. If I get it, very nice. Otherwise, we'll just read it. So just a minute. So please give me just 5 minutes. Somebody remembers the chapter number in Canto number 2 where creation was given? So in Canto 2 also we had universal form.
Prabhuji, somewhere before chapter number 5.
Okay, chapter number 5.
Somewhere before chapter number 5, 4 or 5, something like that.
Okay. Okay. Yes, 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 yes. So maybe I'll try to put that formula in in your chat box. So you can just look into chat box. I'll just give me 2 minutes. I'll write it down, and then I'll explain things more elaborately from that. Hare Krishna. Now, can devotees see? They can see in the chat box. I just gave a formula. So was this covered before? Then I'll not cover it. Otherwise, I'll cover it in detail. Was it covered in Canto 2? This formula? No. Okay. Then I can cover it. So now, actually speaking, all the ingredients in the form of conception also come from Supreme Lord only. So Lord also has organs, but all these organs are made up of Sat Chit Anand. Sandhini potency, Samvit potency, and Ladini potency. So Sat come from Sandhini potency, Chit comes from Samit potency and Anand comes from Ladni potency. So these three are called internal energies of the Lord. And these three internal energies of the Lord manifest, or their perfect reflection is three modes of material nature. Sat, Chit, Anand, which is product of Sandhini, Samved and Ladni potency, turns into Sattvagun, Rajagun and Tamogun of this world. That's why all gross and subtle organs which are composed of three modes of material nature are reflection of the spiritual organs of the Lord. How they are different? In spiritual organ, there are no deficiency. Angani sakalendri vitpitanti. By one organ, which is spiritual, one can function with another organ. It's like Lord can eat through glands. Similarly, all residents of spiritual world can also eat through glands. They can also glance and eat. So one function or one organ cannot do just its own function, it can do other functions also. That is not possible in this world because it is a perverted reflection. So from, if you see in the chat box, I have shown that formula. So from Lord's subtle sense organ comes sense objects in this world, that's called tanmatra, and also comes the gross element in this world, earth, water, fire, air, ether. So what are the subtle sense organs that we have already read in our second canto? So subtle sense organs are organs which are there in the subtle body. Like there is jiva and there is talu. Jiva is there in subtle sense organ or subtle body, and talu is there in the gross body. And that is the reason we even eat in our dreams. And sometimes people secrete saliva also. They enjoy in the dreams also. Because there are subtle sense organs in the subtle body also. So from Lord subtle sense organs come tanmatras and gross elements. From Lord's gross sense organs, like eyes which are there in the gross body, ears which are there in the gross body, comes sense devtas and subtle sense organs for all of us. So that is how everything comes from Virat Roop. Everything comes from Virat Roop. So that is how things come out. Now we can go in that chart. Okay. So Mati, you can scroll down to that chart. No, down. Please scroll down. The gross organs are there. Yes, below this bar. More. Yeah, this one only. Yes. Okay. So as I was telling, there are gross sense organs which are there at the part of gross body, and there are subtle sense organs which are there in the subtle body. So this chart is given there. From gross organ is called, like now for mouth it is called asyam, and on subtle sense body, subtle sense organ is called vacha. Who is the controlling deity? Adidev is Agni. So Adhibhut is mouth or asyam. Adhyatma is vacha or voice, and the controlling deity is Adidev, which is Agni. And what is the functionality or activity? Activity is to express oneself in words. That is carried out. So one can express oneself in words only when there is Asyam, Vacha, Agni, and there is an object to speak about. That's called words. So when all four of them combine, earlier we were saying three, now we are saying four because earlier we were taking gross sense object and subtle sense object to be one only. Now we are differentiating. So when we want to speak, then Agni has to sanction. There should be something to speak, that is sound, and there has to be Asyam and Vacha. Similarly, when there is Talu in the subtle body, Jiva in the gross body, there's Varun Devata who sanctions to taste, and there is a something to taste, that is Adibhut. Then the tasting takes place. Then the tasting takes place. Similarly, when there is Nase in the subtle body, nostrils in the subtle body, Ghrana or the nose in the gross body, that sanctioning demigods are the Ashwini Kumaras, and there is something to smell. Then the process of smelling takes place. Similarly, when there is Akshini in the subtle body, Chakshu in the gross body, okay, it's other way around, sorry, gross organ. Akshini in the gross body, Chakshu in the subtle body, and Suryadev sanctions, and there is something to see, then we can see. Similarly, Charma in the subtle body, skin in the gross body, there is a demigod of touching, that is Anil or wind god, and there is something to touch. Then there is touching process. Similarly, when there is Karna in the subtle body, Srotra in the gross body, okay, and there is Dik Devatas who are the sanctioned demigods. Then we hear. Twacha and Roma are there, gross and subtle bodies. Trees personified are the controlling deities. And there is something to touch. Then there is itching and happiness. Similarly, there is genitals, Medra, which emits semen. There is Prajapati. Then one enjoys sex pleasure, if the facility is there. Then there is Guda or Inus, Payuna evocating. Then there is Mitra, is the demigod. And one there has to be stood in the stomach. One can pass through. Similarly, there is Hasto and Vartaya, gross and subtle elements. Indra is the demigod. And then there is some transaction through the hand, whatever we want to do. Then there is business. Similarly, Pado is there, Gatya is there, Vishnu Upendra is there. Again, although this given Vishnu and Upendra, this is not Vaman there. This is not Vaman there. So, and there is a destination. Then there can be activity of moving. Similarly, when there is Buddhi and Bodhena, gross and subtle, there is Brahma who is the demigod for that. And there is power of expanding an object is experienced. Then there is heart, which is seating place for mind. There are mental activities which are gross. Then there is Chandra, the demigod. And there is something to speculate. Then there is a mental speculation. Similarly, when there is Atmanam, subtle, Karmana is a gross. The demigod for that is Rudra. And there is something to identify, then there is self-identification. Similarly, there is consciousness called Saptam. Conscious part is called Chitta. So consciousness is basically spiritual. Chitta is a result of Sutra Tattva. Sutra Tattva is Mahatattva in mode of passion. And the in charge is the Mahatattva, the total material energy. Then one can conceive a specific knowledge. So that is how by each of these combinations, different activities take place. But main thing is, as I told in the formula before, it has to arise from Supreme Lord only. So only because Virat Roop is there, that conception is there, and Garbhodak Sai Vishnu will enter as Paramatma within that Virat Roop. That is how everything will become manifest, which was dormant for 1000 celestial years. So that means nothing can move in the universe, nothing can move in one's own body or one's own life unless until Lord's intervention is there. So that is how what we learn from that. So any question on whatever I have explained till now? If not, then we'll just continue. Yes, Jagat Mata, Sachi Mata.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी। प्रभु जी जो अभी पीछे आता है ट्री personified when we come to the skin deities. How tree, can you explain?
Okay, so it looks like no, like we have Mahatattva personified, symmetry personified. So trees personified also they have some demigod who is the in charge. That is what we understand. Not much is given about them. Much detail is not given. Like we had trees personified, they were taking care of this lady called Marisa. Marisa. So Marisa was married to 10 Prachetas.
Yes.
When Prachetas were like burning all the trees. So that means there is some demigod who is predominating deity of trees. But now we may not know much about it. Much detail is not there. Okay. Hare Krishna. Another question? Okay. Seems there's no question. So then now we'll go to verses. So now if this is clear, then we can have at least some taste for these verses. Okay. So now please read 11, 12 and 13.
Hare Krishna. Maitreya said, "You may now hear from me how the Supreme Lord separated himself into the diverse forms of the demigods after the manifestations of the gigantic universal one." Text 1. Agni or heat separated from his mouth, and all the directors of material affairs entered into it in their respective positions. By that energy, the living entity expresses himself in words. When the palate of the gigantic form was separately manifested, Varuna, the director of air in the planetary system, entered therein, and thus the living entity has the facility to test everything with his tongue.
Yeah, thank you. So like I was explaining before, that these demigods are still in conception. It's like they are in the mode of conception. And we may say that you can say in one sense, they're like second set of demigods. So first set of demigods were there with Mahavishnu, their second set, and third set will be like with Brahma. So these demigods in the form of conception are there in the Virat Roop, which are going to be there in one set in one universe. Yes, please read 14, 15 and 16.
Text 14. When the Lord's two nostrils separately manifested themselves, the dual Ashwini Kumars entered them in their proper positions, and because of this, the living entities can smell the aromas of the gigantic form of the Lord were separately manifested. The sun, the director of light, entered them with the partial representation of eyesight, and thus the living entities can have vision of forms. 16. When there was a manifestation of skin separated from the gigantic form, and Anila, the deity directing the wind, entered with partial touch, and thus the living entities can realize tactile knowledge.
Yeah. So anyway, so we have already written that in the table. The nostrils of the universal form Adibhuts become differentiated, and from that universal form Adibhut and nostrils came the deities called Adidev, Ashwini Kumaras, with a portion of subtle cells organs of the nodes called Adhyatma, and by the nose smell Adibhuta appeared. So from that particular formula, if somebody is interested, actually, if there was a, I don't have access to laptop, like, no, in the sense that we can't run function anything there. Otherwise, you could have made a chart and filled everything there, as we made the table. Then how from the Lord, particular form of the Lord, other things come out. So from Lord's Adibhut, or gross skin, comes the presiding deity Adidev. So from gross element of the Lord comes the Devta, that is Vayudev, and the subtle sense organ of the skin. So that is mentioned in text number 16. So they're exactly fitting the formula which I have written in this chat box. So this formula will be followed throughout. Yes, please read the next 3 verses.
Hare Krishna. Text 17. Translation. When the ears of the gigantic form became manifested, all the controlling deities of the directions entered into them, with the hearing principles by which all the living entities hear and take advantage of sound. Text 18. Translation. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensations and their different parts entered into it, and thus the living entities feel itching and happiness due to touch. Text 19. Translation. When the genitals of the gigantic form separately became manifest, then Prajapati, the original living creature, entered into them with his partial semen, and thus the living entities can enjoy sex pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So that is how this formula again continues. From Adibhuta, the ears of the universal form, comes the sense devtas, that is presiding deity of the direction Dig devtas, and the subtle sense organ, that is Adhyatma. And by the ears, knowledge of the sense objects called sound appears, then Adibhuta appears. So that is how it appears. And same thing with 18 and 19 also, or text number 18 and 19. When gross skin Adibhut of the universal form comes presiding deity of the plants, that's Adidev, along with a subtle organ called bodily hair, Adhyatma. And there is a relief from itching, Adibhuta. The same formula there continues. From the gross organ of the universal form, gross sex organ of the universal form, presiding deities for progeniting, that is Prajapatis, they are born. Then there is subtle sense organ, which emits semen. And then there is sense organ or bliss of sex life is there. And one is dependent on the Lord for that also. Now please continue next 3, 20, 21, 22.
Radha Keshav Prabhuji.
Yes, yes. The evacuating channel separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with the partial organs of evacuation. Thus, the living entities are able to pass stool and urine. Text 21. Thereafter, when the hands of the genetic form separately became manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them, and thus the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood. Text 22. Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and the demigod named Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination.
Yeah, so it's very clearly given that it's not a supreme personality of Godhead Vishnu. So when the gross anus of the universal form becomes manifest, becomes differentiated. That means from the gross anus of the Virat Roop, what comes? Dig Devta of the, also not Dig Devta, but the Devta of the evacuation, that is Mitra. the subtle organ of the anus in each one of us, and then the gross organ of anus becomes appeared in on all of us, and we can pass through. So that's how we are dependent on the Lord. From the two gross hands of the universal form, that Virat Rupa, comes the deity of the hands, that is Indra. Comes the sense organ of the hand by which one can sell and buy, because one sells and buys through hand. So that the subtle one, subtle sense organ comes. And then we also get gross hands by which one we can learn our means of livelihood. So in this way, for earning our livelihood, also we are dependent on the Supreme Lord. Then in 22nd, from the feet, gross feet of universal form, comes the Devata. There's a deity Vishnu. He's not a Supreme Lord, but another Vishnu. And from there also comes the subtle organ of the feet. And then we get the gross feet by which we can walk. So that also comes from the Supreme Lord. Yes, please read 23, 24, 25.
When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with the partial power of understanding, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities. Text 24, translation. After that, the heart of gigantic form separately manifests itself, and into it enter the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus, the living entity can conduct his mental speculations. Text 25, translation. Thereafter, the materialistic ego of gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the controller of false ego, with his own partial activities, by which the living entity transacts his objective actions.
Thank you. So now from the section of the heart which consists of intelligence, because in the region of heart, four things are there. You cannot say even four, it's like five. Five are there. Now four elements are there. Man, Buddhi, Ahankar, mind, intelligence, ego, and Chitta, the contaminate consciousness, Chitta. So these four elements are there, metal elements are there in the region of heart, along with Atma and Paramatma. So they all reside in the heart. So in the section of the heart which consists of intelligence of the universal form, from there came presiding deity of intelligence, that's Brahmaji. And the subtle organ of intelligence, Adhyatma. And that is how we got a gross intelligence. And we can't think and plan. We can use our intelligence. From the section of the heart in which mind is there, from that section of Virat Purusa came presiding deity of the moon. From that came the subtle portion of the mind, and that is how we got a gross mind, and by that we can do our mental actions. From the place region of the heart where Ahankar is situated, from there came the presiding deity of Ahankar, that is Rudra, and that is how we get a subtle Ahankar, and from that comes the gross Ahankar. Okay. So we had done 25? No. We are done. So now we can
Yes,
just read.
Prabhuji, till 25. Yes.
Okay. So now somebody can read 26. Just read 26.
Thereafter, when his consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy, Mahatattva, entered with his conscious part. Thus, the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge.
Yeah. So now from contaminate consciousness, Chitta, which I told it's not a subtle element, it's not a spiritual, it's material. From that portion, Now, certainly for Lord Vishnu, it is spiritual only. So from that portion of Virat Roop came the presiding deity, that is Vishnu. Vishnu is the presiding deity of Chitta. Chitta is Mahatattva in mode of passion. That is also called Sutra Tattva. So from that came subtle portion of Chitta, and by that consciousness appeared, because of which we can be conscious of metal elements. So first, this is the first covering on the Jiva, where one becomes conscious of the metal elements. So one becomes conscious of the metal elements because of Chitta. So that is how, in that conception, by that conception, all demigods, all gross and subtle organs, and their activities appeared. Now, from that same Virat Purusha, the structure of the universe is going to come out. Unless until that structure comes, how will Brahmaji create? Brahmaji has to know what to, he should have a blueprint of what to create. So we'll see here in the chart that his head is heavenly planets, his leg is earthly planets, and his abdomen is the sky, Bhuvarloka. And Varnas will also appear from there. From mouths, we get Vedic wisdom and Brahmanas. From arms, we get the power of protection and Kshatriyas. From thighs, the means of livelihood and the Vaisyas come. And from legs, the service for the sake of others and Sudras come. So that is how they are also going to, Varnashram is going to appear in that form, subtle conception. And planetary systems are also going to come in that subtle conception. Yes. Now, please read 27, 28, 29.
Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested, and from his legs, the earthly planets, and from his abdomen, the skies separately manifested themselves. Within them, the demigods and other also were manifested in terms of the modes of material nature. Text 28. The demigods qualified by the super excellent quality of the mode of goodness are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human being, because of their nature in the mode of passion, live on the earth in company with their subordinates. Text 29. Living entities who are associate of Rudra develop in the third mode of material nature or ignorance. They are situated in the sky between the earthly planets and the heavenly planets.
Okay. So 27th. So we have read up to 28th, right? Okay. So then you need 29th also, Mataji? Then we'll.
Yes, Prabhuji, yes, 29 also.
Okay. So from the head of the Lord, universal form, comes Svargaloka. From his feet, there is Earth planet, and his navel is the Bhuvarloka. So we say Bhu, Bhuva, Swa. So Bhuloka is at the feet, then Bhuvarloka is the region of Antariksha, and also the place where Yakshas and Rakshasas stay is also called Bhuvarloka. So Antariksha is between Bhuloka and Bhuvarloka. Yeah. And Swargaloka is the place where demigods stay. So demigods have predominance of Sattva-guna, so they stay there. Mankind has Rajaguna, they stay in the Bhuloka. And those who have Tamas, those are followers of Rudra, they attain Bhuvarloka. So Yakshas and Rakshasas stay at Bhuvarloka. So that is the navel region of the Lord. So that's 27, 20, 29. Now read 30, 31 and 32. Yes, Daruka Krishna.
How this Tamaguni entities are living above that, those are in the Rajoguna.
Okay. So how they stay there? Because of their piety. So in the modes, they may be lower than us, but they have earned pious credits to stay there. It's like saying somebody may not be skilled in a office, but if he has done very hard work, then he may get a higher position than a skilled person because he has done hard work. So similarly, depending on one's modes as well as depending on one's credits, one gets a place in this universe. Like we have built swargas which are below earth, but they are swargas. They are more opulent than earth because they have done pious credits and we have exhausted our pious credits. And they're different from Divya Swargas which are above, like Swargaloka, Janloka, Taploka, where enjoyments are very subtle. In Bil Swargas which are below, the enjoyments are very gross. Like in the Swargaloka, they may be drinking somras. But in the below ones, they may be drinking very hard wine. So both the places, it is not sinful to drink wine, but depending on their desire and karma, they go to a different place. Okay, does it answer your question, Pooji?
Prabhuji, it seems contradictory that below us is also kind of Swarga and above us is also Swarga. That Sutal Lok is kind of Swarga where Bali Maharaj is living. And those living, but we are in between. So those are below us. They must have exhausted their pieties. That's why below this. Then
no, this is a wrong conception that below means places of misery. That is a wrong conception. They're below because they're having a, you can say, the enjoyments are more gross. Because below earth are the places where there is no sunlight. So you must have seen so many people. Currently, you are in Delhi, right?
Yes.
So Delhi, you have seen some people who don't like daylight; they like only night light.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay. If you go in college, you'll find. Like in our IITs, so many students know they would never like daytime. Whole night they would be awake. So there are people like that who want disco lights. They don't like sunlight. So then such people are there. So their desires are fulfilled in the lower planetary systems. I'll give you any graphic example to explain how these things. So this earth is the only place where we have the opportunity to earn karma. So this is like a office area. Like you have your Gurgaon, a lot of offices are there, software offices are there. So this is like an office area. In the office area, you earn piety and we earn sin. For sins, one gets punishment. Like for example, one who commits very grievous sin, they are sent to Kalapani, Andaman Nicobar. Recently, some Gunda was sent there. So they send them there. Those who have done little lesser ones, they are put in separate cell within the jail only. Some who has done little lesser this crime, then they are sent to like 4 people in one cell. You can have some interaction with people also. If one has done much more lesser sin, then one can even have a playground. There are playgrounds inside the jail. And somebody had done very less sin, then they are given some fine and they are left in open. So some monetary punishment is there. They are not put in jail. So similarly, when very, 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 very gross sins are there, there are hells below 14 planetary systems. So there people are given all sort of punishment. Somebody is cut like a sabji, somebody is boiled in a like a puri in the Kumbi Park. So different healths are there. Some lesser this is there, punishment is there. Then there are like Jalaja Navalakshani. One becomes a amphibian or one becomes aquatic. Lesser sins are there, one becomes trees and plants. Lesser sins are there, then one becomes beast and birds. And when sins are practically exhausted, everything is exhausted. Because we also create different varieties of sin. So for very gross sins, we are punished in hell. Lesser sins, then there are Jalajana Lakshani. Much lesser sins, there are birds, much lesser than beast. And when there are like almost negligible sin, then one gets one has exhausted the sins. Same thing is true with piety also. Depending on one's level of desire, which is influenced by Rajoguna, Sattaguna, or Tamaguna. So those desires which are subtle and pious desires, and one has piety for them, then one goes to Divya Swarga. If one doesn't have that level of goodness, one cannot enjoy there. Like for example, in Tapoloka, everybody just enjoys by performing meditation. If you send one Delhi wala there who is not a devotee, he will become frustrated. Whether there is heaven or there is hell, Delhi was better. But for those who are yogis, those are tapasvis, they go there that there are forests but no mosquitoes. There are fruits, there is water, and you can just live on that. So one can meditate for a very, very long time. They will enjoy there. In Satyaloka, there is constantly performance of yagyas and people enjoy by performance of yagyas. So these are subtle desires. Swargaloka, little lesser. No, there are rivers of juices there. One can drink the different juices, enjoy shastric music. One can drink subtle liquor in the form of Varuni or Somras. And then there are Bhuswargas in this earth planet itself that we will learn in 5th canto. So the passionate desires are fulfilled there. So there is an ocean of liquor, ocean of sugarcane juice. So you don't have to work hard, just enjoy there. But those who are very gross and desires of the living entities, who are in desires in mode of ignorance, they are fulfilled in Bilswargas, where one wants hard liquor, still doesn't want to get punished. One wants to enjoy with women, especially women who seduce the men. So all those enjoyments are there in the Bilswargas. So that is like, these are different places where one exhausts different pious credits and enjoys. So it is like, I have earned a lot of money. Now I go for an outing to enjoy with that money. So there is a hotel in Mumbai called Hotel President. One enters there, but the minimum price of one cup of tea, maybe 2,000 rupees. So one can enjoy that till you have 2,000 rupees. As soon as you have lesser than that, no use of staying there. Then you come out of the Hotel President, then there is one thela there. It is written Vice President. President में काम नहीं चलता, Vice President में काम चलाते हैं. So then you enter there, and then let us say the least thing is available is for 100 rupees. Till 100 rupees are there, you exhaust the credit there. Then you have 50, 60 rupees. Then you have to go to some nukkad shop and drink some tea there or eat something there. But only when 4, 5 rupees are there, which even beggars of Delhi don't take, then you come back home and again earn. So when practically all pious and sinful activities, their credits are exhausted, one gets a human form. That's why in the human body, there's not much pleasure, not much pain. And that is why it is considered most conducive for practicing Krishna consciousness. And apart from human, this earthly planet, all the places are meant for either enjoying or suffering. Yes, Daruga Krishna, yes.
Prabhuji, so those are human species. We have 4 like kinds of human species. So they are not divided on the basis of their consciousness. Are they being divided on basis of their piety?
No, they are divided based on consciousness, but we are not the only human beings. Demigods who have human-like body, they can also be categorized as human beings.
Yes.
You can categorize. You cannot categorize them as Jalajal Namalakshani or Staval Lamu Vangchati. We cannot say that like that.
Right, I understood like this only. So my question is that those are in the below planetary system, we were sharing Atal, Vital, Sutal. So are they being divided on the basis of their consciousness, correct?
Yeah, it's like more grosser pleasures are available more down, more grosser.
But they've been sent to there because of their pieties or because of their consciousness. My question is this.
Both. It's like I have a desire which is dependent on consciousness, and I should have enough piety to fulfill that desire. Like I have a choice to go in hotel president or hotel vice president. But if I have a desire to enter in hotel president, but I don't have money to spend in hotel president, I will be out. So I should have both. So I have piety and I have entire 14 planetary systems to enjoy. Depending on your consciousness or level of desire, which is influenced by mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, if we have that amount of piety, we can stay there. So it is mixture of both.
Understood. Like in that way, that whatever consciousness one would be having, he will be act accordingly, and he'll credit that sin or piety, and he'll be rewarded accordingly.
Yes. Rewarded or punished?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we'll read 30, 31, 32.
Text 30 translation. O chief of the Kuru dynasty, the Vedic wisdom became manifested from the mouth of the Virat, the gigantic form. Those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge are called Brahmanas, and they are the natural teachers and spiritual masters of all the orders of society. Text 31 translation. Thereafter, the power of protection was generated from the arms of the gigantic Virat form. And in relation to such power, Kshatriyas also came into existence by following the Kshatriya principle of protecting society from the disturbance of thieves and miscreants. Text 32 translation. The means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and their distribution to the prajas, was generated from the thighs of the Lord's gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas.
Yeah. So from the mouth of the universal form came Vedas, and those who recite the Vedas, Brahmanas. They are considered the chief of the caste because they have vision. Like out of, not out of, it's like all 5 Gyanendriyas are there in the mouth only. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue for tasting, as well as the skin is also there in the head also. So similarly, one can acquire the knowledge through the medium of Brahmanas, and Brahmanas give vision to the society. So that is how Brahmanas are considered the head. Then there from the Bahubya or from the arms, like arm, whenever there is a fight, we raise our arms. So similarly, Kshatriyas protect. They protect the society. Kshatrayati Kshatriya. One who has ability to protect is called Kshatram. Kshatram is called ability to protect. So those are the ability to protect are called Kshatriyas. So they don't exploit, they protect the citizens from exploitation. Like Vaisyas would not get so much profit that no practically rest of the population dies. So they have to levy taxes on the Vaisyas, and the common commodity, their prices is not supposed to be raised too much. Similarly, some people want to kill, steal, they protect. So they protect the citizens from aggression. And then from the thighs came the occupations such as farming, cow protection, etc. And Vaisyas came out. So Vaisyas are the producers. Like thighs have maximum energy. Similarly, they also produce energy for the society to run, transporting things from here and there, producing food grains which are required for everyone, protecting cows so that milk is available for everyone. So all production is done by Vaishyas. Okay. So this 33 and 32. Now please read 33 and 34.
Thereafter, the service was manifested from the legs of personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious functions. Situated on the legs are the Shudras who satisfy the Lord by the service. Text 34. All these different social divisions are born with occupational duties and the living conditions from the personality, supreme personality of Godhead. Thus, for unconditional life and self-realization, one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of spiritual master.
Yeah. So now from the feet of the Lord came Susrusa, the service. So Sudras came there, and they are considered the servant of all the upper caste as well as actually the Supreme Lord. And they please the Lord by their service attitude. See, the main point here is generally people have fight for who's a Brahmana, who's a Kshatriya, who's a Vaishya, who's a Sudra. But the Vaishnava attitude is we are servant of servant. We serve even the Sudras also. So that means one's position in Varnashram has to be taken according to one's propensity so that subtle body is satisfied. And then one can get perfection of that propensity by engaging that in Krishna service. Like it's not that I have love for my head, but I have no love for my legs. Let somebody cut my legs, no, it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters because I have love for legs also. I have love for hands also. I have love for my thighs also. I have love for my head also. Similarly, Lord loves everyone, provided they are used for Krishna service. So that was very important. So in this way, in a universal form, all these four varnas also manifested. So all these varnas, along with their occupation, came from universal form. And one who worships the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master, by these duties, they undergo purification. So this whole episode of Virat Roop is meant for explaining that. It is meant to explain how each of our activities comes from the Supreme Lord. We all get our activities. In this way, we can be Krishna conscious at all the time while performing any activity. We may be situated in any place, Bhuloka, Bhaurloka, Sargloka. That is also part of Virat Roop only. So we are in any place, we can be Krishna conscious. And we may be performing any occupation of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Sudra. Ultimately, it is also part of Virat Rupa. So while performing activity also, under the instruction of spiritual master, we can worship the Supreme Lord, understanding that these are given by Supreme Lord only. These are angas of Supreme Lord. These are parts of Supreme Lord. In this way, we can remain always Krishna conscious and always serve the Supreme Lord. So this whole episode of Virat Roop is given for that sole purpose. No other purpose is there. Okay, and of course there is truth also. This is the truth. That how actually speaking, Lord is involved in everything. Lord is involved along with Kali in each and every atom. Lord glances on Pradhan, which manifests as time factor. So there also Lord is involved. So Hari is everywhere. Lord Narayan, Lord Krishna is everywhere. He's everywhere. Only thing is if we realize it by reading Bhagavatam again and again, then we can become fully Krishna conscious. So I will not go in another topic now. So anybody has any question they can ask, else we'll end here. Okay, so we'll end here. Seems there are no questions. 15 श्रीमद् भागवतम की, शिल्पोपात की, वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधु एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण।